Okay, so what if I told you that our deepest desires aren't really our own? What if they're actually manufactured by the very systems that control us? Well, that is the explosive idea at the heart of Anti-Oedipus, a massive work of 20th century philosophy by Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari that, honestly, even all these decades later, still challenges pretty much everything we think we know about desire. The entire book, and I mean the whole thing, is driven by one deeply unsettling question. It was first asked by the philosopher Spinoza, and it's this: why do people fight for their own servitude as stubbornly as though it were their salvation? Just let that sink in for a second. And this wasn't just some abstract philosophical thought experiment. The authors were looking directly at the work of Wilhelm Reich, who was writing in the shadow of rising fascism and asking the same terrifying question. How is it even possible that people not only tolerate being humiliated and enslaved, but actually come to want it? This is the central riddle Anti-Oedipus sets out to solve. And so that brings us to the book's first great puzzle, what we can call the riddle of servitude. Now, the crucial thing to get here is that Anti-Oedipus isn't just another dense political theory textbook. No, its whole project is to build an entirely new way of seeing the world, a new framework for understanding this bizarre and frankly dangerous phenomenon, why we so often end up desiring the very systems that oppress us. So before Deleuze and Guattari came along, what was the standard explanation for all this? Well, the answer leads us straight to the book's main intellectual opponent, the Freudian diagnosis. For decades, the go-to answer came from psychoanalysis, and it was all centered on one big idea: the Oedipus complex. You know the one. In this model, all of human desire is basically framed by a family drama, that classic triangle of daddy, mommy, me. All our desires are neuroses. They're supposedly born right there in the family home. But Deleuze and Guattari, they saw this completely differently. For them, the nuclear family wasn't just some neutral stage for our psychological development. No way. They saw it as capitalism's #1 tool for psychological repression. Its whole function is to take a child's natural desires and tie them up in knots of shame and guilt. And what does that do? It creates obedient, docile people who are perfectly primed for social control later on. And they did not pull any punches. They launched an all-out attack on the psychoanalytic establishment, pretty much accusing them of being on the wrong side of history. The police on our side, they wrote. You can just feel the fire in that. For them, this wasn't just some polite academic debate. It was a political battle over the very meaning of desire. All right, so if desire isn't a family drama, then what is it? This question brings us to their most revolutionary idea. Desire isn't a theater, it's a factory. Okay, this is the fundamental shift, the big pivot. On one hand, you have psychoanalysis, which sees desire as a lack. You desire what you don't have, right? It's a negative force. But Anti-Oedipus flips this whole thing on its head. For them, desire is a positive, productive force. It doesn't lack a thing. Instead, it's a machine that is constantly, actively producing reality itself. And they gave this process a name: desiring machines. In their model, desire isn't just a passive feeling of wanting something. It's an active process, a process of connecting, linking up, and producing. It's like a machine that plugs into other machines, biological ones, social ones, technical ones, to literally build the world that we all live in. The authors actually used this painting by Richard Lindner to get their idea across. See, the boy here isn't looking to his parents to figure out what he wants. He's plugged his own desiring machine straight into the bigger social machine. He's basically short-circuiting that old family triangle and connecting directly with the social world. So this completely new way of analyzing desire, this focus on connections and flows and production, it needed a new name. And the name Deleuze and Guattari gave it was schizoanalysis. Now, a central idea in schizoanalysis is something called the body without organs. I know, it sounds pretty strange, but they use the metaphor of an egg to help explain it. Imagine the body without organs, or BWO, as this egg. It's a surface of pure potential, just crisscrossed with all these lines and gradients that represent all the possible connections and transformations desire could make, before it gets organized by society. So, to put it simply, the body without organs is a space of pure potential. It's the plane where desire flows totally freely before society, or the family, or even our own ego steps in to organize it, to channel it, and to tell it what it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to want. Okay, so let's try to break schizoanalysis down into its 4 main arguments. First, the unconscious isn't just about your personal family dramas, it's social and historical. Second, What a group desires can be completely different from its rational self-interest. Think about it. Third, these big social desires are actually more fundamental than any personal family-based hang-ups. And finally, and this is so important, social desire isn't neutral. It's always pulled between two poles, a repressive, fascist one that wants order and control, and a revolutionary one that wants freedom and escape. And this is how desire works in their model. It invests itself directly into every single part of society. As they famously wrote, sexuality is everywhere. It's in the way a bureaucrat handles his records, the way a judge administers justice. For them, desire is part of the raw economic engine of society, not some psychological thing that happens after the fact. So, what is the point of all this incredibly dense theory? Well, it all leads us to the book's lasting legacy, a call for what was called an introduction to a non-fascist life. The legendary philosopher Michel Foucault actually wrote the preface to the English edition of the book, and he just framed its importance perfectly. He said, Anti-Oedipus isn't just theory, it's a book of ethics, a practical guide even, an introduction to the non-fascist life. And Foucault's point here is absolutely crucial. He wasn't just talking about historical, capital F fascism with uniforms and parades. He was talking about the fascism in us all. The fascism that causes us to love power, to desire the very thing that dominates and exploits us. The book then really becomes a kind of toolbox for rooting out these tiny, everyday fascisms in our own minds and behaviors. Look, Anti-Oedipus does not give us easy answers. It just doesn't. Instead, it gives us a new way to ask maybe the most dangerous question of all. Are your desires truly your own? And in our world of social media, intense polarization, and all kinds of new forms of control, figuring out how to dismantle the fascism in our heads might be more urgent now than it has ever been.